Hi everyone, welcome to the Trends and Sport panel discussion. We are here today with 5 amazing guests. We have Fallon Fox, who is joining us live from the United States. She is a retired professional mixed martial arts fighter. Then we have Laura van Beckhoven from the Netherlands. She's a semi-professional windsurfer and also a Pride and Sport ambassador. Then from the USA as well, we have Luca Page joining us. They are the founder of Radically Fit, which is a queer and BIPOC-friendly body positive gym. We have Rafael Summerville, also from the Netherlands. He is one of the co-founders of Man.ish and also co-founder of their sports and wellness initiative. And then finally, also from the Netherlands, we have Romy Rockx, who is the founder of the queer gym in Rotterdam. Welcome, everybody. For our first, let me just say what the setup of this panel is before we start. So my name is Laura and I will be the moderator for today. We have a nice conversation planned with our panelists. Towards the end, there will be some space for questions from the people watching at home. So you can use the chat to ask questions and we will collect these to discuss towards the end. And the Q&A will be done by TranScreen volunteer A, who's joining us as well today. Hi. So that's kind of the setup. So any questions, just pop them in the chat. We will start then with the first question, and that will also give our panelists the opportunity to introduce themselves shortly, which is what got them interested into sports and what got them into sports in the first place. Fallon, would you like to take it away?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's good to be here. Let's see, what got me into sports? Let's see. When I was a child, I really wasn't too much into sports for some reason. I don't know why. Just wasn't interested in it until I reached high school. And that's when I was told that joining the wrestling team could be used as a form of self-defense. And they were right, and I did that. But after high school, my love for sports kind of waned for some reason. Don't know why until I became an adult. And then one day I was researching online and a video popped up about about cisgender women fighting in MMA. And I watched that and it was inspiring. And I started looking up women's fighters such as Megumi Fuji and Gina Carano before she became right-wing. And it just seemed like the sport of MMA would be empowering, just looking at them and getting that from them. So that's why I joined sports.
So it's really for you was an empowerment to find yourself in sports.
Oh yeah. Lots of empowerment.
Great. Laura, what got you into sports?
Well, when I was young, I started fencing. I did it for, let's say, about 18 years, till 10 years. And then I busted my knee. So I had to stop. And my highlight was the Dutch championship for adults while I was 17. So it was fun. Of course, then study, family, and all that kind of things. I had to stop with sports until I was transitioning to myself, and well, it wasn't easy. I was put in mental home because there were a lot of problems, and the only way I could relieve myself was doing sports, especially the extreme sports like off-road kickbiking or windsurfing. And the more that I was windsurfing, we got a saying: everything changes when your board hits the water. Well, that's absolutely true. I mean, it's the way I can relieve all the stress and all the things that that are bugging me at that moment. So for me, it's mostly an outlet.
Right. So it's not just your physical health, but your mental health as well.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Thank you. Luca, what got you into sports to begin with?
Hey y'all, I'm Luca. I'm my pronouns are they and them. Yeah, I've been playing sports since I was a little kid. And I think for me, being feeling embodied in movement was always really important. And I kind of transitioned into the fitness world for really similar reasons as Fallon and Laura, which kind of are foundationally rooted in mental and emotional health as well as physical health. And what has kept me there has been how important movement is for my personal healing and being able to pass that along to other people.
So also that community experience for you then. Beautiful, thank you. And then Rafael, how did it start for you?
For me, it started with my mom when I was younger. She used to play volleyball, and I would always go watch her play. And that kind of got me more interested in sports. And when I grew up, or when I got older, I was really into basketball, and that was one way for me to just be myself without feeling out of place. And yeah, that really kept my head straight without kind of losing it. So basketball was definitely a way for me to relieve stress. And for the past 2 years, it's been boxing. So yeah, my thanks to my mom, I would say for sure that she got me into sports.
Nice. So also a family affair, nice. And then finally, Romy, how did you get into sports?
Hi, yeah. Well, I also played sports when I was young, but I always had to choose between sports and theater. And theater always was number one, so it went a little bit away. But I still did, when I went to theater school, I did a lot of movement classes, of course, and it was always there. And I noticed that my work, like my theater work as a director, was very physical as well. And during my transition, for me, actually, I'm hearing like the same stories. It was the only way to make me feel better, actually, and also into fitness. And I discovered as well that it was good for my own mental health just to work out. And yeah, so that got me into sport, like all of these ways.
Yes. Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of like similarities where it's really important for both physical and mental health, like an outlet. So a lot of good experiences physically and mentally. But we all know that the world, and by extension also the world of sports and fitness, isn't always a welcoming place. So what does reclaiming the role of sport and fitness for trans community specifically mean to you? I'm going to stick with Romy for now.
Yes, well, sticking to the same story, like when I transitioned, it was on an older age, and my brother-in-law, he had a small gym in his own house, and I was able to exercise in his gym. With my body being vulnerable, because going through all of these phases, and I wasn't having my top surgery yet, so yeah, I had to work out in a sports bra, which was not fun and confronting, but necessary. So I was so happy that I was able to stand there in my sports bra and doing my sports to make me feel better. And I was then aware of the fact that I was so privileged. And I was like, if I'm so privileged and feeling this way, how many people are feeling worse than I am? And where is this place for us, and especially indeed for people who are in an worse situation than I am? So yeah, that's a bit of the way I was thinking of reclaiming space, and the feeling that you are not, they never say you're not welcome, of course, but the fact that you are in a workout group and you're in between boys and girls, and you're like, and what exercises for me?
Yeah.
what should I do? Is already they're not nice thoughts to think about. Not like where should you go to the dressing room? Like all of these things are so extremely gendered.
Yes.
It's very confronting. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was also probably your motivation to start Queer Gym.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, because there was no place like really focused on that. Of course, there are a lot of CrossFit boxes as well. Like I'm hearing it like are very welcoming and very friendly. It's not all bad, but most of the things, yeah, it's super focused on this binary ideal beauty standard of what you should look like. Like you are, it's based on change. Like you're not good enough when you walk in. Wow, you should be enough just walking in and do whatever you feel like you want to do. Like it's yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's also a big reason for me to start this.
Yes, thank you. I want to move to Luca, who also started. They also started an initiative similar to yours. You started Radically Fit. So, what does reclaiming the sports world mean to you?
Yeah, I think a lot of what Romy already said. The fitness industry is really rampant with white supremacy, which includes a lot of fat phobia and a lot of binary. And it's very restrictive for people whom, unlike what sounds like all of us who grew up in sports, for people that are like walking into a gym who maybe haven't played sports their whole life, who maybe are new to fitness, that can already feel overwhelming in itself. Moving your body is a really vulnerable and personal thing, and being asked to do that in a space that maybe is friendly towards you, but is essentially not centered for you is a really hard ask for people. And so I think reclaiming space is always coming down to creating space and ensuring that there are spaces like Radically Fit and like Romy's Queer Gym, where you're not just welcomed, like this space is for you. And so the work that we're doing really centers queer and trans folks, but it also is really deeply rooted in celebrating fat bodies, bigger bodies, and Black and Indigenous and people of color. So those marginalized communities are having a place where they can come and feel that this is their place to move their body in a way that feels more safe.
Thank you. So Rafael has a similar initiative. Could you also tell more about how you reclaim space, Rafael?
Yeah, what we're trying to do with the Man.ish cave that I'm a part of is we started this year to just get our people together. So trans, queer, or Black and trans people of color. We're trying to get them together where they can just be themselves without feeling this kind of anxiety of stepping into a gym where you feel very out of place because you don't know the reaction you're going to get if you step in a gym. And what we want to do is get these group of people together in a place where they can be themselves, where no one is looking at them, questioning what
Rafael,
they
you're
are.
kind of sluggish for me. Is it the same for other people?
Be themselves and just work out whatever it is that the workout is that they want to do. Because I think for me, when I first
you're kind of lagging and sticking behind. Can you maybe see if maybe your equipment is like overheating or something?
Am I still lagging?
Yes, you are. I will get back to you quickly. Maybe relog
Give me a minute.
Help.
I'll be right back.
Yes, thank you. I want to move on to this conversation. We talked about creating our own spaces because of not feeling safe in other spaces. So can you maybe touch on how these intersecting inequalities they've already mentioned, like racism, transphobia, sexism, fat phobia. How do they shape regular fitness spaces from your perspective? And what do you think is necessary to be able to change this? Can gyms even be like a safe space? Luca, can you maybe touch on that?
Yeah. In terms of how those intersectionalities affect most fitness spaces, I think the bottom line really there is that they really impede people's ability to feel empowered through fitness, which is the goal. If people are coming into a space and they are already feeling vulnerable in moving their body, putting a lot of restrictions in terms of like what society deems they can and cannot do based on what their body looks like, they are far less likely to feel that they can succeed in movement, and they are far less likely to make it a lifelong kind of practice. And for people who are already marginalized, like queer and trans people, Black people, people of color, we are already living in a society that is like consistently telling us that we are not worthy of really any equality, but also just not worthy of thriving. And when you are in a fitness space, the goal is often, or should at least be often, to feel like you are thriving and feel like you are empowered in moving your body that way. So those intersections are like really important and are constantly a part of all fitness spaces. And what was your second? Sorry, what was the second question?
Kind of like, how are you able to create change, and is it even possible to create a safe gym space?
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, you know, I think it's important. A friend of mine reminded me recently, it's important to state that, you know, the idea of a safe place is not really in existence. I think that there are ways that you can make spaces safer, for sure. And I think that the way that you can do that and the way that we do that really comes down to representation. It also comes down to being aware of constantly doing the work of untangling ourselves from white supremacy, from the patriarchy, and that is like an ongoing practice that we all have to do on a daily basis. We've grown up in society where this is just normalized, and we are all carrying a lot of internalized misogyny. So being able to kind of check that and work towards a goal of having a space that feels safer to folks is really, in my opinion, the best way to do that. And I think that includes also having programming that's really specific to marginalized communities. So for example, at our gym, we have classes that are specific for bigger bodied and fat bodied folks. We have classes that are specific for trans and gender non-conforming community that helps with prepping your body for top surgery, and also just being around other trans and gender non-conforming folks in a really vulnerable space. And we also have classes for like BIPOC. So making sure that in your space, in your community, you are creating even kind of more in-depth spaces for marginalized folks within the greater community is also really important.
Thank you very much. I hope Rafael by now is back on the chat. Rafael, can you also touch on ways in which you think the intersecting inequalities shape conventional fitness spaces, and the ways in which you at Man.ish Cave are working to create a space that people need? So to kind of create a safe or safer space. Let's hope you're back.
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope it won't lag now.
You're good.
Awesome. Yeah, so what we want to do at the Man.ish Cave is basically, as I stated before, is just get Black and trans people of color, or trans masculine people together to work out, not necessarily in your conventional or traditional gym, but we want to create our own space where you can just show up as you are without people giving you the side eye of like, what are you like what is your deal or whatever. Um, and with that, we want to not necessarily compete with these big traditional gyms, but just find a space where we can just go and let go of all these um, ideas of having to fit in your traditional gym and just be. Um, and I think for myself, speaking for myself, I find it very important where to go to a place where I can just be without having to justify why uh, why I am or who I am or what I am. It's just I just am. Period.
Yeah,
Uh,
just
I don't want to explain that.
and just focus on the enjoyment of moving and
Yeah.
community and
Yeah.
why you're
Exactly.
actually there.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is great.
Exactly.
Yes. So I actually read that you started your initiative during COVID, right?
Yeah. We were planning on, or we have been thinking about this idea since last year. Um, but this year is actually where we really started to like make moves and make it happen. We have been thinking about it for a while, but last year was like, okay, because of COVID, no one can go anywhere. Gyms are closed. What can we do to actually get people out there and still feel like they can work out or get support um, in a more physical way? Um, and this year we had our first meeting, and it was like, yeah, it was good. I mean, it was a small group, but the feedback we've got from the people that joined was like, yeah, this is something we can do. You know, we don't have to leave the house. We did it virtually, so it was like everyone is safe in their own space. We don't have to like be outside in the open. People don't have to travel. You can, we can all work out online, which is ideal for now. But we definitely want to expand and maybe down the line get our own space. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a big building or whatever. The space where we have gym equipment and people can just show up and then we can do our own thing.
Yeah. So I'm still hearing like that connection, the importance of the connection between
Yeah.
both physical health and mental health again. Like
Yeah, it's
they
very
go
important.
hand in hand.
For sure. For
Yes.
sure. Yeah.
So Romy, you also have like a fitness initiative that also stems from your own experience with both physical and mental health. So how do you work in your organization to create that space, and like what do you think people need, and how can you create that safe space within the gym sphere?
Well, I think the most important part, and I already heard it a bit from Luca, is that we have the right to have a place with walls around it where you can just have sports or just be, because there is no queer building in Rotterdam at all. And I am done with doing activities on places. I think we deserve a place where we can have a safe space. Indeed, for like queer people, for people, for fat people, for people of color, all the marginalized groups, just to have this place. And I also heard it again, like the representation, like what are the pictures that are on the gym, like what do they say, what people are on this picture. Can I see maybe a trans woman working out on a picture, and she might not be super fit, but why do all these pictures are with white fit people? I think there's a big thing of that. You're seeing these photos and you're like, that's not me, so I don't have the right to be there. And
Right.
you want to see people, and you can say, if this person has the right on powerlifting, on any form of training, so I can have it as well. Because I'm hearing loads of queer folks who are like, oh, I didn't know the gym, it's not for me. But everybody has a right on this fitness. Like, it's not a cis normative thing.
Yes.
So I think it's also being radical in it and just claiming space, not asking anymore.
Yes, I think you're creating a beautiful segue into our next question, actually. You know, we already touched on representation. It's important to see people like you, because like Laura said in the chat, if you can see someone like you can start dreaming of being that too. And I think that's a beautiful way of phrasing it. So the next question for our panel is, how do you respond to the current mainstream conversations around trans exclusion from sporting competitions? I'm thinking of new legislation proposed within the US, where they have gender checks for kids in sports. We have a testosterone maximum to be able to participate with the women in the Olympics. So we are really seeing a wave of legislation around gender within the sports world, as well as a lot of opinions within both the conventional media as well as social media. So how do you respond to that? I'm going to start with Fallon on this one.
Right. I think the current conversation trying to exclude trans people from sports, trans kids from sports, seeks to erase trans people entirely, right? And it seeks to stop transgender kids from transitioning. And in a way, I feel that they feel that it will get rid of transgender people, like, because after all, if you can't transition, you're not trans in their estimation or something like that, I guess. I don't know. But if they can discriminate against us in sports, I think it'll set precedents. And I think that's what they're trying to do, make trans discrimination bleed over into other segments of society so that we're not allowed to be trans or something. So
yeah, can you also touch on the US context specifically, like the kind of response or backlash you are seeing in your country?
yeah, the backlash is harsh. So I mean the backlash in a positive way or in a negative way? Because there's backlash against this trans exclusion bills that are coming across, but
yes,
I don't, yeah.
Yeah, like you see both movements. Indeed. So can you like how is it from your like standpoint with being in the US?
It's horrific. I think they start with trans kids because they're the most vulnerable of us, which is really gross, and I think that's got to end. So it's just been really horrific.
Yes. We also have Laura from the Netherlands here. Laura, can you touch on like the situation in the Netherlands?
I think it's also depending on what sports you're doing. Like I'm windsurfing, so it's a solo sport. But yeah, doing the competition, I'll have to participate in the women's league. Well, it was scary for me to ask the unions if I was able to windsurf in the women's league. I mean, hearing all the stuff against us, I was like, hopefully I can participate in my dream and become the fastest woman on the face of the earth. Well, okay, I am in my own weight class. Yeah, that isn't very hard because I'm the only one in my weight class. But when I'm participating in with other women, everybody will say, yeah, I have more testosterone and I will be stronger, but I'm also heavier. I also need bigger equipment because I'm heavier. So, and when I'm telling stuff like this, they're like, oh yeah, you're right. So I'm glad that I am accepted. Since yesterday, I got my own sailing number. So I am allowed to really participate in international and national competition. So next year I'll be going to France. So, but also, yeah, I don't know in other sports. Of course, I'm hearing a lot about going to the gym and stuff. It's not really for me. I rather go. I want to go outside. I don't know a lot of people that are doing sports, because a lot of them stop doing sports because they are afraid to be excluded based on their gender. I mean, and I'm trying to use my social media to empower people to also transitioning, be themselves, but also in sports.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So have you noticed the discourse conversations both in conventional media as well as social media around trans sports, and what do those conversations sound like?
Most of the time it's always the people you hear are those are shouting against us. They're shouting harder than the people that are with us. And when you look at what they are saying, I'm like, have you ever did any research on this subject? Saying that I have more testosterone than you? Well, probably I don't think so. I mean, I know my testosterone level, and even if I want to go to the Olympics, I'm 9.5 nanomole per liters less than I need than I may
In the
have.
max, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm still don't have so much, and it hurts me. I mean, reading those stuff, even from acquaintance of myself, they are saying, yeah, we don't want transgender to do sports. I'm like, wait up, you know me, and now you're saying this. So yeah, I don't understand. I mean, we just like everybody else want to do sports. I mean,
Right.
it means so much more than just physical. It means also mental. And when people see you in sports, they will, or see you, well, they will yeah, sorry. I'm
It's
trying
okay.
to talk faster
Yes.
than I can think. um, um, I heard also representation is needed, and absolutely.
Right.
When people see you, they're like, oh yeah, okay. And I know a lot of women in the women division, and they're like, yeah, you're one of us.
That's
Period.
great.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But you do see like a lot of hurtful comments, unfortunately, still like online as well as made in media.
Yeah, yeah. I learned myself not to read the comments.
Right. I mean, that's a good
Everything
tip.
about
Yeah. Yes.
transgender, I stopped reading the comics. It's hard because there are a lot of people who are with us, and you don't feel those words. You
Yeah.
only see
The
the bad
negative ones
words.
stick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we of course discuss now some negative effects of the media, but Fallon, can you touch on ways the media can be used to positively affect the situation of trans folks in sport, both like the younger generation as well as just everyone in general?
And positive, I think if the media tells the truth about transgender athletes instead of catering to antiquated notions and antiquated like bigotry and hatred, we'll get a lot a lot farther along. And I think that we have been lately. I don't know so much in sports, but yeah, it can affect us positively if we get off of that. And if I mean, take me for example, if you want to talk about it, about the negative aspect of it. When I first came out, most of the media was slamming me for being a transgender athlete. There were awful articles and TV shows and radio shows saying horrific things, saying horrific things. And I don't think that much of what they were saying back then will be tolerated so much now. I mean, I think we've moved a little bit further than we were 10 years ago. So I think things are getting a little bit more positive. Um, so yeah, I think media can be more positive for transgender people.
Yeah, so we see like a positive development slowly but surely.
Sure.
Yeah. And so how do you personally as a public figure try to contribute to that?
How do I try to contribute to that? I do things like this.
Of course.
I
Thank
talk,
you.
of course, and I talk to media and I explain the transgender situation in sports and like try and be a representative of us. So I think when I do that and I work with media that I know could be working more positively on transgender people, like that helps a lot also.
Right. Yeah, thank you. We're at our last question currently, and I want to ask this to all of you in the panel. So how do you see moving forward the future for trans people in sports? Rafael, would you like to go first, please?
Yeah, sure. Um, do you mean like like on TV in the media or
I
everyday
think we
life?
can approach it from different angles. So whichever angle you think like, I want to point this out.
I think moving forward, it would be great if more trans people or people with trans experience would, or the media would allow people with trans background to be more visible. I mean, a lot of like the representation is kind of dependent on the media also, like not so much social media, because on social media there's a lot of representation out there for trans people to see.
And also a lot of self-representation, of course.
Exactly. But it would also be great if we can get more of the like the public media and public figures out there. Yeah, I wouldn't really call it campaigning, but really putting themselves out there, and trying to encourage trans youth to also be like, it's okay to be you, you know, and I did it for you, you know, but I'm still here, and just like me, you can also be a top athlete in whatever sport you desire. I mean, it's going to be hard, but you know, you're not alone in this fight. And I think if the media would show that in a positive light as well, and not just the, I think, the small fringe group of people that are against it, um, that are being shown more. I think the media has to kind of show the positive side of it as well. It's like, what influence and effect does it have on these on young people that are trans, that see these people in the media, that are like, oh my god, that could be me in 10, 20 years, you know. So definitely with a lot of help from the media, and I think we have to pave our own way and
Right.
kind of piggyback on some of the people that are currently in the media, um, to get ourselves out there more. And I think with all the initiatives that we've started right now, I think we can definitely get there. Um, but we do have to do it together in our respective fields and in our different countries. But for sure, if we can get there together, we can go a long way. I mean, it's only, as you know, the world is big. You know what I mean? It's we
Yeah.
can do whatever we put our mind to, and there's not a lot of people that can stop us. I mean, they think they can stop us, but if we put our hands together, I think we can do a lot of magic.
Thank
And I
you.
mean, it sounds fairy tale-ish, but fuck it, why
Yes.
not? You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
excuse my French,
exactly.
by the way.
Luca, how do you see the future of sports for trans people?
Yeah, for sure. I feel similarly to what Rafael just spoke to. I think that it's important to be optimistic when thinking about trans futures, because we are worthy of existence. We're worthy of thriving. We're fucking worthy of taking up this space. So, and I think also it's really important. Like, representation is really important, and I think it's amazing that we do the labor of showing up to these panels. We do the labor of putting our personal life in front of communities and in front of the society to help other people gain self-acceptance. But I also want to note that I think it's really important that we ask allies to step up in that place for us. Marginalized people historically have always been asked to do the labor of setting themselves free, and that is actually not fair and is incredibly draining on us. So I think, you know, asking other queer folks to step up and help the trans community take up the space they need to. White allies need to step up and center BIPOC people in their communities. Thinner bodied people need to make room for fat and bigger bodied people in their communities. For people who, like myself, have started initiatives, it's really important to remember that with that responsibility lies a lot of privilege, and that we need to access that privilege in a way that benefits our greater community. And that is always going to look like, Romy touched on this earlier, ensuring that what we're putting out in the universe is what we want reflected back and what we want centered. So if we're creating spaces for trans people, for Black people, for fat people. Those are the people that need to be centered, not only in our conversations, not only in our foundational building of our spaces, but also in what is getting put out for the world to consume, because that is how people are going to see themselves. That is how people are going to feel safer coming into these spaces.
Thank you very much. Romy, can you maybe also touch on how you see the future for trans people and also within your field of fitness specifically?
I don't know. I think I also heard a lot of similarities. I feel that there are a lot of, like, especially in the Netherlands, people are really a little bit more aware of what is happening, especially around the LGBTQIA+ community, and of course, like, with bigger heroes or in representation, like Aniki Tutorials, who is now a Dutch hero. I mean, it's great. It's like these people are respected, and I think that this is like also a big opportunity for other collectives to shine. And I think I also see it really positive, but I'm also a little bit naive sometimes. So I don't know if it's if that's okay, but I see it positive. I see like more communities stepping up for themselves, and that there are things are getting created, and a lot of, indeed, like allies seeing what needs to be done. And yeah, I can see a brighter future indeed in my industry, but I also am holding my heart for this stuff, what's happening around the Olympics, and with all these levels being checked, and that's like so many steps back. And I hope there's going to be so much more research, like where are the trans researchers in these subjects to step up and say this is not correct, like where's the information, where's the education around these subjects. Also what Laura was mentioning, it, she's doing it for herself, but why is there not an education about it? So I hope this in the future, people are going to be educated about about hormones, about what is going on with the body, and especially getting away from this binary. So that's a wish I have for the future.
Thank you. Then moving on to Laura, how do you see the future of trans people, and also thinking of like semi-pro and pro, like the sports fields?
Oh, I think it's gonna be hard for now and in the future, because looking at the Olympics, I mean, that weightlifter, if I'm honest, I hope she lose, and I hope she lose big time. The only reason is then people will stop talking about we have an advantage. I mean, people will always, especially trans women, that we always will be in our advantage. And if she loses, all those critics will have to shut up, because somebody who is transgender, who is a woman, is losing. So that's also, if I'm looking at the speed field within windsurfing, I'm somewhere in third position, and I'm only accelerating, I'm only the fastest in the nautical mile. I mean, that's almost 2 kilometers full speed, because I can use my weight on it, but not, but I'm lost what I wanted to say, sorry.
Yeah, but like it's tricky to see with all the regulations, like where will we move, how do we move forward with that?
Yeah, and where are we going to stop? Because a lot of athletes who are cisgender don't get the checks. Why do people want to check me and don't check some other woman who is faster than me, or some other who is slower, or some guy who is slower than me? I mean, why do we check only the transgender, not all athletes?
Yeah, that inequality there.
Yeah.
So then I want to finally go to Fallon. How do you see the future of trans sports in your field?
Yeah. Overall, I see the future of trans sports as positive, right? I see that there are a lot of transgender athletes that are coming out lately, like a lot. Like Laura just mentioned, we have the trans weightlifter in the Olympics. I hope she wins, actually, regardless of it. I think that if she wins, if she loses, they'll just say that she just sucked or something. Just like what happened with me. I was winning a lot of my fights. Like I won like 5 fights and then I lost one. And when I was winning those fights, everyone's like, she's like crazy wicked advantage. Like it's, she shouldn't be allowed in sports. And then when I lost, they were like, well, she sucks. She shouldn't be allowed in sports. But overall, I think that the future of trans sports is going to be is positive. I mean, we're making way. We're having this conversation here and now. Like a lot of us, like there's a lot of us here, and I think this legislation will be beaten back at some point soon, and things will just be looking in better shape for transgender people. I think the spark has already been lit. And I think transgender people are just coming out of the woodwork. So
yeah, we're seeing the development. You're quite positive about it.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Oh, sure. So we're seeing a development and you're positive about that development, that it will move towards a positive place.
I think it will. Will.
Thank you very much. I actually see we're already getting some questions in the chat. So I'm going to hand it over to A right now, and he will be doing the Q&A for us. So A, take it away.
Thank you very much for all the great answers and also for all the great replies. So I will start with the first question we got in. It was Remke, and the question is for Rafael. What would be a temporary solution? Would the temporary solution that you spoke about with your gym at the moment be a permanent or a temporary solution? As Remke sees the situation, it would be great if it could be integrated and more inclusive. What is your view on this?
For now, we really just want to focus on not integrating yet, because we want to get people back into the rhythm or into the mindset of being okay with who they are before we say, okay, let's bring all this into a regular gym. I think chances are we would probably open our own gym first, and then we would be like, okay, everyone is welcome, but we will make sure that our people, like trans people, color, queer people, all our core group has access first, and then we'll be like, all right, allies and all that good stuff can join. But we're not excluding anyone, but we just want to make sure that we come first and then everyone else.
I fully agree. Thank you very much, Rafael. So the next question was from Laura, and it was to all. The question was, grassroots and top sport level is an important variable to consider, not just minor and adult. Would you treat and regulate the different sides of these two groups differently? Who would like to answer that? Is there anyone? Luca, do you have an opinion about this? Sorry.
No, sorry, I was reading and mouthing.
Okay. Yes.
I don't know. I guess I'll jump in here. I mean, I guess I don't see why anyone would treat them differently. It's all sports. So I mean, scholastic sports, grassroots sports, professional sports, amateur sports, like everyone should be included fairly. And I don't see why there would be any differences if that's what they were getting at.
I think it might also be with the IOC, the Olympic community, or the committee. Yes, exactly. Thank you. And with just general sports for everyone to join up, like the rules can be maybe different, like that. I think is meant. I'm not sure. Maybe the person can ask in the comments. Okay. So the question is answered. Thank you very much, Fallon. Then the question from Indigo. Maybe Luca, you can answer this question. Can you interrogate your personal blind spots around trans and GNC folks with disabilities and their lack of access to fitness spaces? What are your personally doing as an ally to the disabled folks, for instance?
Yeah, this is a really excellent question. I think for able-bodied folks like myself who run fitness spaces, when we started Radically Fit 3 years ago, ensuring that we were making the space accessible to folks with disabilities was really important. And I say that and also want to recognize that that's a very kind of blanketed thing. There are so many in-depth aspects of disabilities that we are not always kind of addressing. So while the physical space is accessible, we also had to do a lot of thinking around disabilities that are not commonly visible and what that looks like in terms of working with those folks in moving their body. So for instance, one of our trainers on staff has experience specifically with working with people with disabilities. And I think thinking again about like programming, I can say that as somebody who is a space holder, this is something that I'm constantly thinking about and constantly needing to readdress and ensure that like we're doing the best we can to hold space for those folks. And also just like in the simple things in terms of like language, right? So when you are leading a class, thinking about the language that you are using and how that language is inherently super ableist. And like a really simple example would be instead of using the word modification when you were talking about giving an alternate exercise to something, immediately readily having available the word alternative instead of modification. Also always thinking about having those alternatives for folks who may need that. So I think language is super important. And again, like this is a great question and something for anyone who holds space in this way to like constantly be thinking about, because disabled folks, as we know, are also incredibly marginalized and more importantly, not assuming what somebody's body can do based off looking at it is also a really important first step to having affirming spaces for everybody.
Very, very well spoken, I say. Romy, would you like to add something to this for your space here in Holland, for instance?
I think I'm also thinking about the same things, like you are forgetting people, and that's a fact. Like you try to think of as many people as possible could enter your gym, and you are forgetting people. But it's indeed good to keep learning and keep asking yourself, who am I forgetting, and how can I make it accessible for those people in the best way I can, or within my abilities to do that. So I think it's an ongoing learning process, and it has indeed lots of things to do also with like what kind of lighting you use, or what kind of, do you use music or not, or can you also, and this is not with visible disabilities, but also with people with, I don't know, autism, or like epilepsy, how do you call it in English? Epileptic. Yeah. Or epileptic, you know, you want those people as well who are not visibly have a disability, but also those people can join your gym, because it's also about them and about their bodies and their experiences. Yeah, so that.
Thank you. Okay, so the next question was from Lucas. The current conversation about trans athletes in the Olympic Games steers towards the medical side, testosterone levels, amount of years on HRT. This seems to affect public opinion about fairness of play at everyday amateur level. How can we combat this? And I think if Fallon, if you would like to answer this first, because you have really been on a high level of competition. What do you think about the fact that they constantly only talk about this? Like the
They
medical.
come the medical side. I mean, are they just supposed to? I mean, they could talk about the emotional side of it, of what it does, about what sports does for people. Like, playing in sports gives you confidence. Playing in sports is crucial to social development, and well, it can also be a job for some transgender people, but we're talking about amateur level. Um,
How did you experience it when you were at the very high level? Did they always just ask questions about the medical side, or did they also ask you ever about the other experiences?
Yeah, they pretty much stuck to the medical experience because that's in their mind. They feel that once you're born a certain way, born or assigned male at birth, that later on you're going to have extreme advantages if you transition, which is just bogus. So they just harp on that all the time. I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe it's just their own bias, I guess. I don't know.
Laura, you already said earlier that you had a different experience, that you're very well accepted at your sports with your fellow competitors. What do you get back from the media in this case? Do they only ask questions about the medical side, or do they also ask other questions?
9 out of 10 times they're always asking about what surgery did you do. Always the medical side.
So do you think it affects also the amateur levels for kids to join up, that they think, oh, this is so important, that they only focus on this?
I think so, because people are still thinking in the binary, still have binary thinking about gender. And so if there is a transgender girl who wants to do sports, yeah, but she has an advantage without knowing if she is on blockers or anything else. Yeah, sorry, I lost it. Can I get the question again? Sorry.
The question was, like, the current conversation about trans athletes in the Olympic Games steers towards the medical side. This seems to affect public opinion about fairness of play at everyday amateur level. How can we combat this? Would you ever, like, if you get a question about medical side of your transition, would you just steer away from that and start talking about something else? Is that something?
It depends on in what moment they're asking the questions. I mean, I even had the moments, well, it was visible, I was transitioning. People were yelling at me when I was drinking coffee, from, hey, are you trans or something? I mean, then it's like, no, I ain't gonna talk to you about this, because this is more from, hey, look at what I am seeing when I look at you. Then truly the interest, being interested in what does transitioning do to your body. I mean, I lost about 40% of my muscle strength. I mean, I lost it. But still people will say, yeah, but you're stronger than other women. No, I'm not. Because already I'm over 4 years on the HRT, so I don't have so much body strength. Yeah, it's all very big. That's also because of work I used to do. It's also because from when I was a child, I already was sporting a lot. I mean, it's my physical, the way my body is built, but that doesn't mean I have more strength than other women.
And there was, thank you very much.
Yeah.
There was one more question that was about how can we end like binary in sports in general, or is this maybe just an illusion? This question came from Remke. Is there anyone that would like specifically to answer this? Feels like yes, I would like to say something about this.
I think it's depending on what type sport it is. I mean, there are certain sports where people with male people will have more advantage than females. There are a couple of sports that are both gender. I mean, doing how you say it in English, handball. I mean, both genders are playing the same in the same field. But looking at windsurfing, I don't think male and female windsurfers can compete together.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm looking at my reference group, I'm doing like 65 kilometers per hour, and looking at guys in my weight class, they're doing like 90. So it won't be fair because they are stronger, they are bigger, they have more power to hold the sail. So in a couple of sports, okay, but not in every sports there will be the binary thinking pattern.
Thank you. With the last answer, and it's gonna come from Luca. Would you like to add something to this, but briefly?
Yeah, I just would like to I just would like to say that I think that we should absolutely end the binary in sports and fitness. I'm a little more radical in that, like, I don't think a binary should exist in general in our society because it is a tool of white supremacy and the patriarchy. I also am not a professional athlete and want to like respect that there are people who make a living off of sports. But as somebody who has been in sports since they were a child, there's a lot to say around the fact that like competition in general goes against like a lot of beneficial societal teamwork that we could instead be spending our energy on. So for me, I'm just gonna throw out that we should definitely rid ourselves of the binary.
What about in MMA? Just a question. I have.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, so for example, for me as like a trans person who is in boxing, I would still be boxing with probably cis women. And I think that it's a consensual sport. And I think that in terms of like competition and advantages versus disadvantages, for me, it is very like looking at the levels of like testosterone versus estrogen, it's really minimal. And I don't really believe that it has a great impact. And therefore, like, I don't think men are inherently, well, I think that like, I understand the reasons why the sports are divided by the binary. And I also just feel like if we were to create a culture where the competition was looked at differently, there would be room for people to compete without the binary. If that
Yeah, so maybe like at someday there's just a competition between people that are really good and people that are really bad. And everyone in between is just enjoying themselves with sports. Yeah. So I think we have to finish up now. And
yes, thank you very much. So I want to, of course, thank A very much for doing the Q&A for us today. And I really, really want to thank our wonderful panel here today, Fallon Fox, Laura van Beckhoven, Luca Page, Rafael Summerville, Romy Rockx. I want to thank all of you so much for all your contributions. I really believe we started a conversation here and we have so much more to talk about. to continue some other time, some other place. But for now, thank you so much for being here. And I hope to see you again at TranScreen. I just want to quickly plug 2 films in our program that really complement our discussion today. So we have Zen in the Ice Rift and Changing the Game, that both are about sport and trends. So check those out on our site, and I hope to see you all at TranScreen someday when it's possible again. Thank you very much.